right? Is sort of like an ideal position for me to put my mouth, my tongue, and so on and so forth in order to get that sound to happen. Hi guys, I'm Gregory West, and today I want to teach you about a coordination that I like to call the falsetto mix. This is something that I use in my private vocal lessons a lot, and it's also something that I've used for myself to help develop my voice. So hopefully it helps you guys too. Now, what the falsetto mix is it's a coordination with your voice, kind of like how chest voice is a coordination or falsetto is a coordination. And it allows you to sing higher without going too loud and without feeling like you're belting or you're using more and more force to get to the higher notes. In fact, it feels really, really easy. So easy that it feels a lot like falsetto. And that's why I named it falsetto mix, because there's a lot of continuity between this coordination and your falsetto. What's cool about this is it's going to give you a lot of dynamic ability. So you'll be able to go from soft to loud in the upper range without breaking and flipping from chest to falsetto. You'll just have more control over that part of your voice. And if you want to sing high notes softly and you don't like getting super loud as you do it, this is a really good technique to use. It's also good as an alternative to what I've referred to in the past as flageolet tension. And so sometimes if you've learned to sing using flageolet tension, you can't use more air in the high range. You're just kind of stuck being kind of loud or really clear with your voice, and you don't have any ability to kind of loosen the quality of your voice up or use a bit more airflow. And so that can make your voice sound a little harsh, a little too tight. And this can give you that kind of beautiful, soft, airy sound that you may have been looking for. So first, I want to demonstrate it for you guys, and then I'm going to break down the exercises that you do in order to develop this. Let's wait for the plane. It's not a truck anymore, guys. You see, I've leveled up. Now it's a plane. Hey! Ah! Ah! Oh! Hey! Hey! Ooh! Oh! I see the future without you. So in timbre or tone, it kind of sounds light and kind of falsetto-y, but not quite a falsetto sound. Now I want to show you how this sound connects really, really easily to my falsetto. Hey! And I'll reverse it. Hey! And now I'll go from a lower note to a higher note, transitioning into the falsetto mix. Hey! Oh! What I really like about this coordination too is that it lets you be more airy with your voice if you want to. So I could do like, ah, and I could put in a little bit more air. But if I were using what I call flageolet tension, there's just no way. More air wouldn't equal more air in that coordination. It would just turn into air pressure. Ah! So how do you go from having chest voice and falsetto, but not really having this in-between coordination, right? What do you do to get there? So this coordination is all about being able to control your falsetto and being able to be aware of how to move your vocal tract. And what I mean by adjusting your vocal tract is that you can put your tongue in a certain place, you can raise your soft palate, you can lower your larynx, you can change your mouth shape, and you have a good kinesthetic awareness of how to do those things. That's pretty important. And also, just having a well-developed falsetto is pretty important. So what you need to be able to do with your falsetto is you need to be able to make it really, really clear. So we'll start here on a breathy sound, and then we'll make it clear. So you hear how I go from breathy to clear, right? Breathy, clear. Some people make a distinction between falsetto and head voice, where falsetto has an airy sound and head voice does not have an airy sound. Head voice is kind of clear. So some people would say that what I'm doing is the difference between falsetto and head voice, but just so you guys know, I don't make a distinction between those sounds, so I'm considering all of that falsetto. As you make your falsetto clear, it needs to be loud, okay? You can't make your falsetto clear at a low volume. That is going to lead you to the wrong coordination. In fact, you may end up going to flageolet because flageolet, it works really, really well at low volumes with no air. So for example, you can hear there's very little air going out now. It's definitely not breathy. It kind of has a clear quality, but it's at a very low volume. That's the wrong way to do it. We want to really take the same sound that we have and get it clear by getting louder. It should be pretty loud. It can help to kind of think of whooping like you would hear at a football game. Woo! To get a really loud, clear falsetto. Something else to look out for as you're doing this is that your falsetto should, as it goes from breathy to clear and loud, it should sort of start to take on a different quality. It should get buzzier, it should get brighter, and this should go along with the clearness, right? It should have this sort of ringing clarity to it. It's kind of like like a buzz to the sound, right? Like there's some kind of high tone that's emerging there. All right, so once you can do this, what you want to do is you want to hold the ooh out and you want to notice what level of support that takes. So you want to just kind of check in with your body and see, okay, what are my abs doing? How does my solar plexus feel? You can push in on the sides where your, what are these things called? The side abs. Push in right there. Just sort of check how hard you have to work down here to maintain that ooh. All right, so I've done my check and I have a pretty good idea of how much support that sound is taking. So here's part 2 of the exercise. You're gonna change from an ooh to an o, and you're not gonna adjust the support as you do it. So as I'm doing that, it probably sounds like, oh, that's like chest voice, or it's a mix or something, right? It sounds like I'm no longer in falsetto. And if you're trying to find that sound, you may be tempted in thinking, oh, I gotta like push for it. Oh, I gotta like go for it. No, that's not the way that you get the sound. You have to keep the support equal. And this is why it feels like falsetto once you get to that sound. It doesn't suddenly feel like you're pushing a lot of more pressure and force. It just feels relatively similar, and it feels really, really light and easy, a lot like how your falsetto will feel. I want you guys to notice as I do it again that I go to a really, really specific shape with my mouth, and it's very consistent. I'm kind of always going to this shape, and that's because it really, really matters. Remember when I told you guys in the beginning that part of what it is that you need to make this coordination work is you need to be really mindful about what you're doing with your vocal tract. Notice that I never get that sound until I reach the shape. Right? There's sort of like an ideal position for me to put my mouth, my tongue, and so on and so forth in order to get that sound to happen. Now, how I want you to try to think about this, think about that sound that you're going to as opposed to the sound that you start with. I want you to think about it like the vowel is open versus closed, okay? So let me explain what that means a little bit. If the vowel is closed, it usually has a darker quality to it. It just sounds a little bit thinner. It sounds a little bit more held back usually. So let me show you down here. Ooh, 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 do you hear how from the ooh, the A sort of like pops out abruptly? we're looking for the same thing up high. Now, okay, that's the vowel opening, so what would it sound like if the vowel were to be closed the whole time? Ooh, eh, ooh, eh, ooh, eh. You know how it doesn't really have that pop sound that it had before? Ooh, eh, ooh, eh. So even though I'm going to an A on both vowels, there's almost like a closed version of A and an open version of A. Or if you're familiar with the idea of narrow vowels, it's sort of like there's a narrow version of the A, right? And a more open spread version of A. And we want that really, really open spread version. A. A. Now, here's a really, really important piece to getting this right. In the low range, the movement that you have to do from the closed shape to the open shape is much smaller, right? So if I do, I don't really have to move the shape inside of my mouth very much to get that sound to sort of pop and be open, right? But up here, I have to move a lot. Look at that. That's a pretty big mouth. And this is probably the hardest part about this exercise for the majority of people is finding the right shape with your mouth. And what you really have to start to internalize is that idea of the vowel sounding open or the vowel sounding more closed or held back. So here's the wrong way. I'll do it the wrong way and you'll hear how the sound never really opens and it doesn't really get that falsetto mix quality. Compare that with again, that sound that you hear sort of popping out is not me going and pushing a lot to get it to happen. It's not really a belt. Some sensations that I feel as I do this is that the one that's closed, the closed A, feels more back and up. In terms of where the sound sort of feels like it's coming from or vibrating. And when I do the A, it feels like it's in front of my teeth or, really far forward, but kind of like here. A! Or here, or right behind the teeth. A! It's back. It's forward. So some tips to get you landing in the right direction, right? Obviously, hold that support constant. Don't get weaker. Don't die off in the volume. You need to be keeping that sound really, really strong and really, really clear. You guys don't hear me do, you don't hear me decrease the energy, right? And I can feel that when I go to the O there, I kind of like lose some of it. I drop it a bit and you don't quite hear that shift. Like, I need my body to remain really, really consistent with the support and really, really strong, right? I don't want to feel a massive shift to feeling a lot more tightness down here or a lot more push. And I don't want to feel any kind of letting go. And my voice shouldn't be getting airy. Another important part is that you need to make sure you're going really, really wide with your smile and you're showing all of your teeth, right? I found that a lot of singers find this kind of hard to do. And a lot of times we think we're smiling, myself included. I've been called out on it in voice lessons too, where it's like, smile, and then I'm doing this. And this is not it. This is it. So what you'll notice is that this has a distinctly different feeling of like activity or energy in your face, right? So your jaw is much more active when you actually have this kind of posture and you really show your teeth. I found that this is a really good guideline to have. And if you're too lazy, you may just stay stuck with that closed sound and it may not open all the way. So make sure that you're really smiling like that. The next step is to make sure that you lower your jaw enough, right? Got to really open your mouth. Oh, 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 that was so silly of me. I forgot, right? It's got to be a really, really big O if it's the O, or same thing if it's the A. A, like A, girl, right? A, A, right? It's not a closed A. E, A, right? It sort of sounds like I'm still more towards falsetto, right? I haven't really gotten that shift. So mouth and jaw opening. Now, the next thing is the position of your tongue, okay? So remember how I talked about a vowel being open or closed? Well, I didn't really talk about how a vowel is open or closed, right? Or how you control that process. But one of the things I did in the low range was I just kind of moved from an oo to an a. And what I'm doing there is I'm very much closing and opening the vowel with my lips, right? Or another way you could think of this is opening or closing in the front. Ooh, ah, right? Closing with the lips, opening with the lips. Ooh, ah, right? Or opening and closing with the lips and the mouth opening, right? Ooh, ah. Now, you can also close with the tongue, though, right? So if I do my open A to my closed A, A. How am I doing that? Because my mouth is still open. A. It's my tongue. I'm closing the space in the back of my mouth with my tongue. Okay, so there's sort of a space in the back of your throat, right? If you say e, your tongue raises and that space is smaller. If you say ah, there's a lot more space there. Your tongue is lower. So you can almost think of it like there's a space that's controlled by what you do with your soft palate and what you do with your tongue, right? And different vowels have different amounts of that space. So what we want to do is we want to find a certain space back there in order to get the falsetto mix. So we want to make sure that we're not closing the vowel with the tongue, right? So if we do E, I'm closing the vowel with the tongue. It's an E. It's kind of an A, but I'm still keeping the tongue really raised up, and it's closing the vowel. By opening my mouth, I allow my tongue to come down more, and I find the spot where my vocal tract is supposed to be in order to get that sound to come out. So let me show you up close what I mean. This can be really tricky to find, guys, and you do have to have certain things in place, like I mentioned, in order for you to find this sound. It's somewhat of a more advanced coordination to access, right? So, but I'm assuming that at this point you've got the coordination down, and I want to move on to some things for you to practice once you're able to get it on the oo or the o. So, step number one really is try it on different notes, right? If you could do it on, let's say, that A, which I think is a pretty good starting place, but your mileage may vary. Try a little higher, try a little lower, right? I've had students where the higher range it works a lot better, and students where the higher range is not where they find a lot of success initially, and really it's got to be a bit lower around G. So give it a shot, play around with it. But once you've started to find like, oh, this is my note where it works really well, you want to try to do it on different notes, right? So I don't really recommend that you take this far below F sharp or F. And again, the notes for you are gonna vary slightly, probably, but it's gonna be right around that area, right, where you feel like it's really weak. So let's go down quite a bit lower to C, and we try the same thing, right? Ooh, ah. It's not working. I'm just stuck in falsetto, right? So it's not really having that effect of pulling me to some kind of a stronger sound. E, A, right? It's kind of weak. And that's what's going to happen. And you're going to practice this and figure out where's the last note where this really is a beneficial exercise for you to do. So after you can do it on a variety of different pitches, you should try connecting it back to your falsetto and connecting it from falsetto back to the falsetto mix. So. And another good thing to do is to be able to just start right in the coordination. So instead of needing the E-A or the ooh-oh, try to just get where you're going. Hey! Oh! Once you've started to get that figured out, we really want to start to figure out how does our idea and feelings of chest voice relates to this. We've kind of got to tie them together. So this can be really, really janky at first when you're practicing it, but you want to go from this falsetto mix and slide back down into your chest voice, right? Or slide from your chest voice to the falsetto mix. Hey! 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 To get the chest voice to connect back and to get that smooth, you do have to do some work with your chest voice, right? Your chest voice, you should be able to lighten the sound of your chest voice. So you shouldn't be going higher and have to get louder, 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 or else you flip very early, right? We want to have to develop our control of our chest voice. So for example, you should be able to do something like, right, where it's kind of light. It's like, it's my light chest voice, right? It's kind of soft, but you can hear it. This doesn't happen to me, right? I don't have to go, I don't have to go super loud in order to not flip, right? So this is hard to develop, but this sort of has to be in place as well for you to get the benefit of switching between them seamlessly. And this is why it's somewhat of an advanced exercise, because some people really struggle with as they're approaching around C to D. For men, for women, it's getting around E, E4, F. You start to feel like, oh, I've got to get louder, right? And you got to increase the volume, otherwise you feel like you're going to flip. So the name of the game is really switching from that light chest to the falsetto mix. Hey! And now I'm in my falsetto mix. Right? So that's the general idea. What about vowels that aren't A and O, right? What if I want to sing an actual song phrase? I can't modify every vowel, to just be A and O. That would be ridiculous. What if I trap? What if I fall? Right? That's crazy. That's not going to work. So how do you get those closed vowels, right? How do you get other sounds that aren't so open without flipping back to falsetto? This is where you practice very slowly adjusting your vocal tract away from the more open shape to the more closed shape, right? But you try not to let go of that sound. Try not to switch coordinations, right? So you can maybe think of this like that sort of pop or like brightness that you hear in the open sound when you in the falsetto mix. You want to try to keep that somewhat, and don't let it go back to that sort of more hollowed out falsetto. So you can see I'm adjusting my vocal tract and the sound is starting to close now. It's not having that wide A sound. It's sort of more of this A sound now, right? It's getting closed, but I'm not flipping. That's wrong. And you hear it kind of gets that hollowed out sound. We want to keep that brightness in it. So adjusting the lips, moving them in, instead of being so wide, right? Making a narrow mouth opening and dropping your jaw and moving it down more. That's a good strategy to try. Also opening the nasal port. You could try to open the nasal port and not flip. But that one's pretty hard. You could try closing your mouth. And the more you close your mouth, the more closed that sound is going to be, right? And that's getting you closer to coordinations that are going to be what you use on closed vowels. You can also try moving the tongue away from that sort of ideal position, but this is advanced, guys. So I recommend that you proceed to those steps as you get comfortable with the sound generally, right? If you try this too early, it's probably just gonna feel impossible. Personally, it took me a couple months to start to make some headway with this, especially away from those open vowels. And the problem that I would get was a lot of creaking, which reminds me, if you guys are getting creaking as you're doing this, it means you're going in the right direction, but you're not quite stumbling on the right shape. And so creaking is that sort of almost distorted quality in your voice, and it's made by the vocal folds themselves. So it's this sound. Hey! Hey! If you start to get this kind of noise in there, right? The exact same thing I'm talking about in the subharmonic video that I made, right? Right? Like a vocal fry. If you start to get a vocal fry up high, right? As you're doing this, it's sort of an indicator you're going in the right direction, but things aren't quite lining up correctly. And for me, when I was first doing this for the first few months, it was very hard for me to adjust my vocal tract away from the spot that made this sound work, right? It was hard to go away from the open position to a more closed position and not get creaking, but I just very slowly practiced it. I practiced going from the open one to the closed one, right? And over time, I got a little bit more, ability to do that without running into a wall of creaking. If you guys are watching this right now and you've had a similar experience where you feel like, oh yeah, I've felt that before, or you're one of my students, comment down below. Let everybody know what was the thing that really worked for you to find this sound, all right? Okay, guys, if you've enjoyed this video, please give it a like and consider subscribing. Also, if you're interested in private vocal lessons, please give me an email at voicelessonswithgreg@gmail.com. All right, until next time, peace.